Today on our 2015 Chevrolet Colorado, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Roadmaster Automatic Battery Disconnect with switch for towed vehicle with supplemental braking system, part number RM-766. In order to flat tow the Colorado, the key has to be in the on position. When the key's in the on position, all of your accessories are on. There's no way to shut them off inside of the vehicle, which in turn could drain your battery. The battery disconnect is going to break that power between the battery and all your accessories, shutting your accessories off, in turn saving your battery life. Now the way this works is this button right here. When you push it, you're going to hear a click, and it's going to shut off all of your interior. When you want it to come back on, or when you're done towing it, push the button, wait just a couple of seconds for the computer to reset, and you can see everything's coming back on. Now this is what the solenoid is going to look like under your hood. Simply have to run your cables to the right locations, run your gray wire inside to the switch, and mount your ground wire. Now let's show you how to get it installed. First thing we need to do is we need to mount the unit. Right on this driver's side, inside panel, typically is a good place to put it, anywhere open. You get close access to the battery. Our battery's right here. This is pretty open, so this is where we're going to mount it. The kit's going to come with 2 self-tapping screws. It's also going to come with 2 bolts and nuts. Since we're putting it here, I'm going to use the self-tapping screws. I'm going to be using a 3/8 socket. Next, we're going to have our gray wire coming off of our unit that we need to run inside, and this is going to go to our switch. Now we've run an Airline tube through a grommet in the Firewall, and then I've taken my gray wire, attached it to my Airline tube with some electrical tape, and then I'll go inside and I'll pull it through, and my line will come in with it. Next thing we're going to do is mount our switch. We need to find a good place on our panel here to mount it. Now you do have a metal bracket that runs across the back here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 7mm socket. I'm going to take these 2 bolts out of the bottom. I'm just going to kind of pull out on the bottom of this. There seems to be a spot right here that's pretty open. It's not going to smash my wires when I hook them up to the back of the switch, but I still want to pull it out to make sure there's nothing else back there. Once I found a good spot for my switch, I'm going to drill a hole to the size specified in the instructions. We're going to take our wire, we're going to run it through the hole like this. Before you do any cutting of your wires to put them on the back of your switch, you want to make sure that your wire where it's coming through the grommet is not going to be touching anything that's moving or wrapped around anything. For instance, this arm right here goes to the steering wheel. You can see it moves. You want to make sure it's going to be above that. What I've done is I've given it enough room and I've zip tied it right here so it won't get pulled any tighter. It'll stay in that position. Now I can go ahead and trim my wires and attach it to my switch. And we're going to need to split this. You're going to have a black and a red wire on the inside. So now I'll strip my wire. And you can use a flathead or a Phillips screwdriver, a small one. We're going to loosen 2 screws here on the back of our switch. And what that's going to do, it's going to pull the screw out from inside. We'll put our wire in, tighten the screw back down on the wire. Before we do that, you take this nut, which will be on here, take it off. Go ahead and pull your wire back through your hole. Put this nut on the wires, and you put your wires back through. Push that back through. Here, bud. And then you can tighten our nut back down on the back of our switch. Once you have your switch in place, you can go ahead and put everything back together. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mount my ground wire, and I'm going to go directly to the negative side of the battery. I'm going to strip the end. I'm going to add the ring terminal. Now the ring terminal that they give you in your kit's a little bit smaller than this. I suggest picking up a little bit bigger one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 10mm socket. I'm going to remove this nut right here. Now this is on the negative side of the battery. And you can really route this however you want. This is just the way that I chose to do it. And you can replace your nut. Next thing we need to do is we're going to hook up our battery lines. You're going to notice one says battery posts, one says battery cable. This one is kind of set up a little bit different. So normally you would take your battery cable, you'd hook to the battery cable, and then the battery post would go directly to the battery post. However, with this one having a cable that goes right to the post, we're going to take this cable off and we're going to hook it to the battery posts and then hook the battery cable line in that spot right there. We'll use a 13mm socket. Go ahead and remove that. And the reason we're doing it this way is because we want to remove the power that's running here when we push the button. So what I did is I ran my cables back behind the battery and up underneath the bracket that holds the battery down. You can see here it comes over top of this plastic cover here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to notch that so that will lay flat. Just use a utility knife. I'll go ahead and make my marks. Once you've made your mark, you can take some wire cutters and cut it if you want, or you can use a knife. Sometimes it's easier, depending on what it is, to use wire cutters. And lay my cable in there and reinstall my nut. Next, you'll have a heat shrink sleeve. Where you're going to connect these two cables, you want that sleeve to cover that. So we're going to go ahead and slide it on. And then in your kit, you're going to get a small bolt with 2 star washers and a nut. So with your star washers, you're going to take your nut, you're going to go on your cable, you're going to put on a star washer, put it on your other cable, then you're going to file that up on the bottom with a star washer and then the nut. Next we'll take a 1/2-inch socket and wrench, go ahead and tighten these up. And we can take our sleeve, get it over our cables, and we'll shrink that up, cover those connections. Next we'll take a heat gun, go ahead and shrink that up. Once you have all your connections made, your last step is going to be putting in your fuse, and then you can test it out. And that'll do it for a look at and installation on the Roadmaster Automatic Battery Disconnect with switch for towed vehicle with supplemental braking system, part number RM-766 on our 2015 Chevrolet Colorado.